right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first ever MagicMakers Group live stream. Really excited to have everyone here today. My name is Lee Kitchen, and I am an innovation catalyst, and I represent the design thinking studio for MagicMakers Group. And it's going to be really exciting today because we are going to gather together a group of amazing people that have collectively 350 years of Disney experience. And we're going to tell you some untold Disney stories and basically celebrate customer service and celebrate the customer experience. We're really excited to do that. I'll be your host today. I'll also be your producer. So every now and then you'll see me looking over at my production board here. So forgive me for that, but want to make sure we get this smooth. We're going to ask you to say hi in the chat too, and also ask some questions. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on one of our first folks here from the MagicMakers Group, and it is my good buddy Rob Malden. Rob, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Lee.
Good. I just want to introduce you properly. So Rob is a co-founder of MagicMakers Group, and during his 21 years at Disney, he was part of the opening team at Disney Cruise Line, where we met, right? And he held roles in finance and hotel operations, and later was one of the executives that launched the Disney's photography business, Disney's PhotoPass. Rob is also going to be our voice in the cloud today. So Rob, thank you very much for doing that, and welcome to our first ever live stream.
Hey, Lee. Thanks for the intro, and hello to everyone. The MagicMakers Group and I are thrilled for you to join our inaugural webcast, and Lee and I are super excited to introduce you to some of our MagicMakers experts. MagicMakers is a group assembled with a very common purpose: to bring our shared expertise to boost your operational excellence in support of your brand promise. We chose customer service as our first topic, not only because it's what we focused on every day when we were at Disney, but because great customer service is great business. Our goal for today is to highlight that a culture of customer service that consistently exceeds the expectation of its customers elevates the entire experience. And it's both an art and a science that should pervade an entire organization. And when it does, customers become advocates. Those advocates are more likely to recommend you, they're more likely to repurchase, and they're less price sensitive. And that is all great business. We know we can't fit everything into an hour, but our experts are going to try and demystify some of the art and explain some of the science of what drove operational excellence across a variety of roles when we were at Disney. We know that this is going to drive some great business results, elevate the brand, and can be applied to any organization. So with that, I'm going to send it back to you, Lee.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that great insight, Rob. We are really excited about today. So I'm going to send you up into the cloud, and I'll ask you, are you still there, Rob? Can you hear us? Can you see us?
Yeah, I'm still with you, Lee.
Excellent. So what will you be doing while you're up in the cloud today?
Yeah, so for those that are following along, I'm personally going to be monitoring the chat. Feel free to add any comments or questions into the chat. We're going to try to salt in questions after every speaker so that we can actually see if we can get some interaction going. We may not get to them all, but that's okay. Feel free to put them in there, and I'll pull them out as I see them.
Excellent. And I'm going to go ahead and have you turn off your video feed as well. And yes, we will go to our first expert. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So leading things off is an expert that I worked with for many years. And I loved working with this guy at Disney because anytime I saw him out and about, especially during an event, I knew that event was going to run really well. He knows a thing about customer service and how it feeds an exceptional customer experience. And his name is Barry Jacobson, and he created magical memories at Disney for 37 years. And Barry actually started as a lifeguard from what my script says here. That's pretty amazing, man. 37 years, and in all that time, I bet you put a lot of smiles on a lot of people's faces, a lot of guests. And we're really happy to have you here. Thanks, Barry.
Thanks, Lee. It's super to be with you, and it's great to be with everybody that's joined us today for our first ever webinar. Proud to be a member of the MagicMakers Group, and you're absolutely right. Probably the best job I ever had. Fridays and Saturdays off, 11 to 7:10. Guarding the beaches at the Polynesian and working the marina. But really, it does boil down to what Rob was saying. It's all about coming to work every day with a common purpose. And at Disney, you learn that on the day one when you go through traditions, our orientation program or our onboarding program. And back in the day, you learned right away, every day you came to work, you had the responsibility to create the most memorable vacation of a lifetime for the guests that were visiting us in our theme parks or in our resorts. And quite honestly, you could boil it down to make it one simple word. It was all about happiness. It was all about creating happiness and making people happy. So
Absolutely.
later on in my career, when people would ask me what my job was, I said, yeah, I come to work to make people happy every day. So it was a lot of fun. So I'm going to give you 3 quick little stories, and I'm going to start with one that's really easy to understand for everyone about how we train and develop incredible cast members to deliver on that brand promise and to deliver a common purpose, making people happy. Many of you are familiar with our theme parks. They're incredibly clean, and it takes a custodial team to keep that theme park clean. And we're world renowned for that. Well, not only do they have the role of keeping that park clean, restrooms, trash cans, streets, it's really about creating happiness and making the guests happy. So we intentionally train them to really act as a guide map. Every time someone is near them, they're watching their guests, and they're trying to make sure that everybody has what they have. So imagine we train them intentionally to be looking for guests, staring at a guide map, all perplexed, not wondering where they should be going. And next thing you know, there's that custodial host swoops in, helps point out their favorite souvenir shop, their favorite attraction, and gets them to the right way. You might think that the responsibility is certainly to clean up popcorn, which happens all the time when somebody spills it.
Oh, that's the worst when you drop your fresh popcorn too. Oh.
Absolutely, the best popcorn. If someone drops a popcorn, they know instinctively right away to go replace that popcorn because it happens all the time. So, it's all about that common purpose. A couple more stories real quick, untold stories. At the Grand Floridian, we had a convention that wanted to have an amazing early morning breakfast on a lawn that faced the castle on Main Street. Beautiful view from our convention center on the lawn adjacent to the convention center. The next morning when that event was supposed to take place, myself, the general manager, the banquets manager, everyone was out very early in the morning to make sure that area was going to be pristine and ready to go. Well, we had a heavy rain the night before, and that grass was soaked. We really didn't want to move the event inside. So what did we do? Even though we had the roles of titles and everything we did, we marshaled about 30 people to dry that grass. We grabbed our lifeguard team, and they brought pool towels over. We grabbed landscapers who brought their leaf blowers over. So could you imagine?
Blow drying the grass, man.
Yeah, it's like blow drying the hair,
That's exceptional service right there.
And, it's all about the common purpose. We wanted the show to go on. We didn't want that guest to have something happen that wasn't magical. And, we help you think about that with MagicMakers. It doesn't matter what business you're in. You come to work every day with a common purpose. One last story, which is really one that really revolves around something that I did that I still remember to this day. We had the Chicago Cubs staying at the Grand Floridian, and they were doing a fan trip. So they brought their fans down from Chicago, had team players there, as well as the famous Harry Carey, who was their announcer for so many years. You probably know who he is. His glasses look like yours, Lee.
Yeah. And it was very stylistic, right? And he always sung the song. That's so great.
Absolutely. And so that's where my story's going. You're so smart about it. But Harry was walking through the lobby at about 2:00 in the afternoon. And I knew every day at the Grand Floridian, and many of you know out there, the Grand Floridian Society Orchestra would play. So I stopped Mr. Carey and I said, hey, Mr. Carey, would you do me a favor? My name's Barry. I told him who I was. Would you sing Take Me Out to the Ball Game today when the Grand Floridian Society Orchestra plays?
So great.
And he and his big bellowing voice, yeah, I'll do it. I'd love to do it.
Wow.
He got up on the second floor of the Grand. The lobby was packed, as it always is, with guests waiting to hear the orchestra. The orchestra announced him, and he led 2 rounds of Take Me Out to the Ball Game for all those guests. So at the end of the day, even though I'm the resident manager and I'm worried about front desk, guest services, bell services, all the things that I have in my responsibilities, it was all about creating a magical memory for those guests and making people happy. And that's what your purpose is. Whatever your job is, That's a job. That's what you do every single day. But your purpose, if you're in healthcare, for example, is to care for those patients. Yeah, you might be the doc, you might be the receptionist, whoever it is, but you're all about care and caring. So some stories for you, and it's been great talking to you, Lee.
That's really great. Really great. I can't believe you got Harry Carey to do that. That's so awesome. So I'm going to go to Rob in the cloud. Rob, it looks like we have a pretty active chat. Thanks you guys for putting all your questions and comments in there. Rob, any questions for Barry?
Yeah, Lee. So I've been having some fun chatting with a bunch of old friends and some new friends in the chat logs here, and it looks like we've got an interesting, really interesting mix of folks. I'm looking at folks in the photo industry. I'm seeing some travel company folks and contact center folks, and one of the things that Barry, I know we've talked about this a lot in the past, is you talk about role and purpose. And at Disney, a lot of people look at us to see that it's a theme park business or it's a resort business. So can you connect that with other businesses? Can you take that concept of role and purpose and apply it to any business? Is that trainable?
No, I believe it is trainable. I mentioned healthcare, for example, being able to make sure that everybody has a caring attitude for every one of those patients as they come through, whether you're the person now taking a temperature when someone comes in. You've got to do simple things and just greet them in a friendly manner, or assist them coming in if they happen to be coming in and have a little bit of a disability. It's going to that next level of caring for somebody. You know, when I worked for the Cowboys, I spent some time with the Dallas Cowboys. It was all about the fan experience and creating an amazing experience for everyone that came to Cowboy Stadium and enjoyed the game. But it was every facet of it. And I think about my friend Gabe Kasani, who is a magic maker. It's about the customer journey, and every little detail matters. So whether it's the hot dog being incredibly hot and that being served fresh, to someone making sure that we assist them to get to their seat in a timely manner before the game starts, everybody has a role, but your purpose is to create the ultimate fan experience. So I think it's relatable to any business.
Awesome. Well, Barry, thank you so much for being here. And dude, it's so exciting to work with you again. I really enjoy working with you back at Disney, and I can't wait till we can do some good stuff for some companies here. And I will see you at the next live stream. Thanks very much.
Dave. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
All right. So our next expert is and I'll just kind of start. So while your team can anticipate your guest needs and jump in when a guest needs help, sometimes things don't go as planned. Our next customer service expert can certainly speak to addressing those situations when they arrive. I will go ahead and bring him in now. So Norm Noble has served as general manager at a variety of Disney resorts, including the flagship Grand Floridian Resort and Spa. And Norm, so great to see you, man. How you doing?
Hey, Lee, I'm excited to be here, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know you've got some great stories, especially from that world. So we would love to hear them if you're up for telling us a couple.
Absolutely. I can give you a great story, and I can also give you a little bit of tips behind how to resolve some of these.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear that.
All right. So, Lee, as you can be assured that, you can imagine just how many guests we serve on an annual basis, millions of guests. Sometimes we do a great job. Sometimes we fall short. It's our desire to be 100% perfect, but doesn't always happen all the time. So I want to tell you this story about a weekend that we had a wedding plan for the Grand Floridian wedding. And as you know, the wedding pavilion team, Disney Fairy Tale Wedding, these guys are, they pride themselves on a number of things. They pride themselves on the meticulous way they go about preparation, the meticulous way they go about presentation, their attention to detail, and their impeccable service deliveries. Now, there was a day when just prior to this wedding that I'm telling you about, I received a call, and the call was about a senior government official who was coming to spend a couple of days with us.
Oh, wow. There's always disruption when that happens. You know,
Right.
and you sometimes you don't get any notice, and they're just there, right?
Absolutely. And if you've never worked in a resort, Lee, you just don't understand how, yes, disruptive it is, but how complex the planning can be to help keep these people safe. And the FBI, they make sure that you're aware of it and you never forget it for a minute. Now, as luck would have it, you know, the arrival of this government official with both the wedding rehearsal and the dinner the night after conflicted with the arrival of the government official.
Of course.
You know, it always happens.
Yeah.
So what happens? The roads are closed, the monorails are shut down for their arrival, and on both days, both the reception and the wedding was over an hour delayed.
Wow.
On both. Now, what the heck do you do in situations like that, Lee?
Especially when you have to I mean, I'm sure there was hundreds of guests at the wedding, so you have to entertain them somehow.
That's true. You know, it's difficult to recover from that because weddings are a one-time event. You have one opportunity to capture the moment, and if you lose it, there can be just massive issues. Nonetheless, we were able to recover, and both the bride-to-be and the mother-in-law, that's the one that you got to take care of, Lee.
Yeah, exactly. Mama's happy, everybody's happy.
That's correct. So we were able to resolve the situation for them. But here's what I wanted to leave this audience with, what I think is really, really important. You know, for most leaders, being called to speak with an unhappy guest can be very intimidating, and it can be their worst nightmare. But yet a small percentage of these leaders truly relish the opportunity to take these challenges on because they're confident, incredibly confident that they'll be able to turn a negative experience into a positive one. So what are some of the things that these very successful leaders do? I can tell you, the first thing is they attack each interaction with a confidence that they can resolve any issue whatsoever and that they can make a difference. They listen intently. They show a level of sincerity, empathy, and understanding for the situation that's happening. They accept responsibility, Lee. And again, this is no time for you to attempt to prove the guest wrong, for you to banter with the guest. You just accept responsibility and try to fix it.
I had a leader once tell me that the guests might not always be right, but they're always our guests. Right?
That's absolutely correct. Now, the other thing is you need to outline for the guests what it is that you're going to do to help resolve the situation. And when you do that, you keep your word, you keep your promise, you be timely in your communication with the guests. And once you've had acceptance from the guests that this option will work, you want to go ahead and immediately begin to execute on it. Okay.
Nice.
And obviously this gives you an opportunity at this time now to begin to build that long lasting relationship that Disney is so very famous for.
Awesome. It's acting quickly and acting sincerely, right?
And the last thing is, I want everyone to remember that leadership is not an exact science. So be flexible with your approach.
Good advice. So I'm going to go to Rob in the cloud there. Rob, it looks like the chat looks like it's pretty much on fire. So what kind of questions do we have for Norm?
Yeah, there's a great couple of great follow-up question here, Norm. So Cherish had a great call out that that some of these service issues can turn into risk management issues that can get bigger. And there's definitely a person here from Magical Memories Planner that notes that it's they have to deal with frustrated customers all the time. So hearing this advice is great. So let me link that to something that we've talked. I'll put my old finance manager hat on, Norm, because when I hear you say, oh, we're going to give the guest and we're going to do recovery, my finance manager says, wow, that feels like we're going to spend extra cost and it's going to cost us more to do that. Right. So can you talk a little bit about how you set expectations for your teams and then get out of their way to be excellent and kind of trust them to do the right thing?
You know, Rob, you are so right about that. That's the first thing the finance managers will always think about.
Definitely.
But here in operations, you know, the important thing for us is that we want to ensure that the cast member is trained properly and understand how to deal with each situation. We want to also make sure that we provide the tools for that cast member to be successful. And third, and I think this is the most important one, is we've got to trust. Once we've given them the training, once we've given them the tools, we've got to trust that they're going to do the things that are fiduciary responsible to a company and make the right decisions from a fiduciary standpoint. And, you know, if for any reason that they didn't make the right decision, that is not the opportunity for you to go ahead and discipline. It's an opportunity for you to coach. Exactly. Talk about what are some of the things you would think about in the event that this were to happen again.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great, Norm. Thanks. Yeah, it's actually Marjorie just called it out perfectly in the chat. Training and empowerment. And a shout out to you, Norm, for being great at that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
awesome.
Lee, I'm gonna send back to you.
Okay, awesome. Well, Norm, thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure. I know we didn't get a whole lot of chance to work together when we were back at Disney, but I'm really looking forward to working with you here at the MagicMakers Group. We will see you next time.
Thanks so much, Lee.
All right. So our next guest, our next expert, is actually on location today, so I'm going to bring him up right now. I'd like to introduce you to George McNeely, who leads our Strategic Communication and Alliances studio. He was a senior director for corporate and consumer communications with the Disney Media Networks and ESPN for more than a decade, and actually began early in his career broadcasting from Walt Disney World, and now helps our clients grow and succeed. George, how you doing? Looks like a great day over at, where are you, the Wyndham?
The Wyndham, Lake Buena Vista, Disney Springs.
Excellent. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. You know, before I start, I got to tell you, I think you have a future in this whole webinar producing and hosting thing.
Coming from the broadcasting expert, that's pretty great, man. I just run my little computer over here, so I appreciate that, George.
And Barry and Norm are tough acts to follow as well. So I'll just tell you that I was sitting here thinking about this conversation, and I bet a lot of folks are probably wondering what exactly strategic communications has to do with customer service. And like Rob said earlier, your brand's goals should be consistently met, and you should be exceeding your customers' expectations. Public and media relations are critical in setting those expectations for your customers. If your customer service delivery happens to go awry, we're there to step in and manage negative stories wherever they're published, traditional media or new media and emerging platforms. Today, I happen to be on location, as you mentioned, at the Wyndham Lake Buena Vista Disney Springs. The original hotel on this site, Little Disney Trivia, was the third one constructed on Disney World property. The first was what? The Contemporary.
Yep.
And then the Polynesian, or as we affectionately call it, the Poly. And today, it's widely known as the closest resort to Disney Springs, this resort I'm at. Why am I here? Great question. Glad I asked it. We just wrapped up a major content shoot of video and still photography to market this property and drive business in support of a recent $14 million reimagination. With all that's happening in the world today, it's about setting expectations and showing the hotel's readiness to welcome guests safely and seamlessly during a pandemic. And this is a critical first step in communications and customer service management. For those who work in branding, you might know the name of the late Charlie Ridgway. I know you know him.
Oh, yeah. I definitely idolize that guy.
Yeah, we all did.
He never missed a beat, and he was just on all the time. His book is really great too.
Well, for those who haven't read the book or know of him, he ran press and publicity at Walt Disney World for decades. In fact, he's got a window on Main Street. I learned my craft from Charlie and his team as a very young man. One of the things I learned was the value that earned media brings, something that I learned doing feature reporting on all things Disney World on radio and TV. And one of my fondest memories as a kid is how Charlie and Disney World brought all the Olympic athletes here after the LA Games. Talk about a backdrop, the castle to celebrate all the medal winners. It's been said the only constant is change. And one of the things Charlie taught us is that sometimes humans make mistakes. And as Norm was talking about and Barry was talking about, Rob was mentioning, businesses need to recover and they need to do so quickly. It's just like customer service recovery. Reputation management needs to happen rapidly to mitigate damages. And you need to have someone who knows your brand up to speed and helping you with a response. Our approach to StratComms focuses on internal and external reputation management, media presentation training for athletes and those executives who are authorized to speak for your brand, traditional and social media optimization, just like we did for more than a decade at ESPN and Disney. And we're currently serving businesses that want to tell their stories effectively. They might even have their own marketing and PR team. We serve as a trusted advisor to help them optimize their performance. Exceptional PR has never been about just writing a news release and hitting send. We strive not to miss a beat in amplifying our client's message to a desired audience.
That is really awesome. It's no doubt that content creation and all the press events that you create require a lot of planning. So can you tell us a little bit more about the alliance aspect of the Strategy Studio?
Yeah, if you visit our website, we call it Strategic Alliances and Communication. And indeed, let's talk about partnerships or alliances, as they call them at Disney World. Take, for example, what we're doing right here at this resort. We're actively supporting it and cross-promoting with other nearby businesses that are in walking distance, such as retailers, coffee houses, food and beverage, attractions, helping them develop long-lasting relationships and alliances to drive business to one another. It's all about business, right? The objective is to generate revenue and to do it well and seamlessly. It comes down to leveraging all the tools in your toolkit to boost customer engagement and spending. For instance, here at this resort, we're laser focused on directional signage with consumer calls to action. We're using the same technology you'll see at the Daytona 500 on race cars.
Nice.
To wrap elevators to tell people about where to go, what to do, and where to have a great time. Another example, what we're doing here is we're partnering with Walt Disney World Golf, Arnold Palmer Golf Management. So we're marketing stay and play packages that'll soon be launched. The customer experience is enhanced as people see how to access products and services to improve their vacation. Concurrently, alliances benefit with increased traffic and revenues. I'd call it a win-win.
That's awesome. Okay, well, this is a very popular subject. Again, I see that the chat is lighting up. I'm going to go to Rob. Any questions for George from the chat?
Yeah, there's a couple in here. So, George, here's the first one from Roxanne. Great question. George, how can businesses take greater advantage of public relations strategy and developing partnerships?
Oh, I think there's a lot of things they can do. During my days at Disney, we worked on a very large scale, Super Bowls, the NBA. I recall one time when our team was tasked to stage a media fam or familiarization to generate stories on recreational activities. In other words, they didn't go to the water parks. They didn't go to any of the famous theme parks. It was all about co-promoting ESPN Outdoors. So what were we focused on? Publicity related to boating, bass fishing, hiking, camping, biking, even golf. Want to please a lot of people in one location? Watch a fishing guide pull up next to one of those massive Magic Kingdom ferry boats and help a child catch his first fish or her first fish. The applause gets really loud, and that's what's so exciting
That's awesome.
about what we're doing.
Moment.
Well, and my kids have experienced it. As soon as I saw it, I said, all my kids got to catch their first fish here. But what we're doing at MagicMakers Group, It's scalable and it's possible, whether you're an auto dealer or whether you're a retailer.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, George. Any other questions, Rob?
Yeah, one quick one I want to slide in, George, for if you can be quick on this one so we can slam it in here.
Mm-hmm.
It's hey, any general, this is a subject that people don't always love to talk about until it happens, but it's any general thoughts on how a business can bounce back from negative attention in the press and social media?
Yeah, I'll give you a real quick answer. Call me. It wouldn't be prudent to get into any specifics, but generally speaking, the key is to determine what the issue is, why it happened, own it, apologize for it, take corrective measures so it doesn't happen again. It's a real art to move on with a renewed diligence in how you manage internally and externally all the messaging associated. Whether you're doing it for a global corporation or a local business, you got to have the right people by your side. When things spiral, that's when people call us. And by the way, if you have us at the table from the beginning, you might not have the problem in the first place.
Awesome.
Yeah, great, George. Thanks. Back to you, Lee.
Excellent. Well, George, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy your time on location, and we will see you at our next live stream. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Take care.
Okay, we are moving on here. Let me just get my stuff together here. As we continue to discuss customer service, I'm hearing kind of a common theme about details, and that's one thing that I was always very proud of when I worked at Disney, is the level of attention to detail that we went to. Our next expert comes to us from the worldwide leader in getting the details right, ESPN. He was a creative director at ESPN in Bristol, and his teams created award-winning content for properties including NFL, NASCAR, MLB, college football, college basketball. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome David Saperstein. David, how you doing, man?
Good, Lee. How are you?
And also, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, you played a big role in the rebranding of the ESPN Wide World of Sports complex at Walt Disney World. Outstanding, right? I'm sure you have a story or two that you could tell us, I hope, right?
Absolutely. We'll talk about the rebrand in a couple minutes. But,
excellent.
You had mentioned details, and there's no question how important those details are, and getting them right every time. Every company or organization has a brand promise. It could be in your mission statement. It could be something else. At ESPN, it's serving sports fans everywhere. So before we would take on a project, we really sat down and said, all right, are we serving our sports fans? Are we serving them well at the highest level? Because as you know, Lee, every company has limited resources. You can't do everything, but whether it's time, money, people. Right. So you really have to say, is this delivering on our promise? And then looking at details, let me give you a couple examples. When we would mock up or create new graphics, data, information, statistics, very important at ESPN. So we would spend a lot of time designing different graphics that would show that in a clear, informative way. Many times when you would just mock up graphics, you put random words or numbers in. It was important for us from a detail standpoint to always use real data in there, even if nobody saw it, but we would build them as though millions of people were watching, because eventually they were, and we wanted to get it right. It was something we always tried to follow. Another example on the same lines was a number of years ago, we were doing a brand new look for Monday Night Football, obviously one of the most
that was really great and really noticeable. It was awesome.
Exactly. And Monday Night Football is one of the most valuable properties at ESPN. So we were creating this new look. We spent a lot of time, money, resources on this look. We'd gone through rehearsals, we checked it all. And I remember as though it was yesterday, standing in the truck in New England, starts airing for the first time, and a number of us standing there looked at it and said, you know what, that can be better. We can make improvements. Now, it was a great look. It just wasn't great enough. And I think you're always trying to reach a certain bar. You always talk about, hitting that bar. And I think the important thing is that bar keeps going up. So in some ways, you never actually hit it. You're always striving to do better. So we took that look, and in a week, we made it even better. And by the next Monday night, we had something a little fresher, a little cleaner, a little better on the air. And Lee, you had mentioned the rebrand of ESPN.
Yeah, that was so cool and so obvious. We should have done it a long time ago. Really great.
Yeah, that was just an awesome project. And what was cool about it for me was it was really the first time I was part of building something where your guests and fans could actually interact and touch the brand. and being at Disney and working with cast members who are just amazing, many of which are part of the MagicMakers group now, so I get to work with them again. And just to think about the details in that, because you've got people who are truly interacting and living with that brand, whether it's through the music that plays as fans would arrive to partake in different sporting events, or the replica Sports Center desk that guests could sit behind. That's a great experience.
I love that.
Graphics on monitors. But yeah, exactly. It was all about that experience and making sure those details were spot on, because again, people were touching your brand. You needed them to walk away with just a great feeling.
Awesome. Well, this is I'm sure this is a hot topic. And again, I'm seeing a lot of stuff go by on the chat. So Rob, there's got to be some good questions for David out there.
Yeah, David, here's a great one from Doug at Presentations, Etc. He asks, what's the key in developing and promoting your brand? A simple question, but I think it's probably got a lot of elements to it. Of when and think about it, I think as well from that full holistic fan experience, right? Sure. It's not only the digital today, it's the physical and digital.
Exactly. I think the first question is just knowing that brand. What's that brand promise? What does it represent? What do your fans or guests or customers, what do they expect? What's that expectation? And really looking at that and determining that from an experience standpoint, again, whether it's digital, whether it's virtual, whether it's physical, in a retail space, wherever it is, it's what is that brand, and always asking yourself, are we delivering on that promise? And from a fan experience standpoint, which you mentioned, nowadays it's a lot different as well. It's not just about what's happening on the field or in the stadium or things. It's really a driveway to driveway experience. There's limited, families have limited resources or money for entertainment, and that entertainment dollar only goes so far. So there's a lot of competition for that. So if you're a sporting event or venue, you've really got to try and engage them and create an experience, because again, it's not just what's happening on the field. In fact, a recent study by Minor League Baseball showed that those fans actually cared more about the entertainment and the experience for their family than who won or lost. So, and now it's a driveway to driveway experience. So are you engaging them at home, which Disney has always done so well before guests would even get on a plane to fly down to Disney World? There was an engagement, getting people excited. Yeah. So that's important from a fan standpoint as well. When they get there, is parking easy? Is food and beverage and merchandise interactions pain-free and enjoyable? And having everybody on your staff on board with that. And then the entertainment experience, again, are they enjoying themselves in the seats? And then engaging with them at home. And I think now we know that's even more important. As fewer people are going into the venues, you still have to engage people at home just as though they're at the stadium, even Absolutely. If they're on their couch in their living room.
Great answer. Rob, any more questions?
Thanks, David. No, that's great. Back to you, Lee.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for being here. Really, really interesting stuff. And I'm really looking forward to working with you too. We didn't get a chance to work together when we were back at Disney. I think you actually were in one of our innovation training. I think that's where we first met. So thank you again for being here. And we will see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Lee.
All right. Okay, we are moving on. So our next amazing expert, somebody I worked with closely back when I worked at Disney Cruise Line. I could go on forever, and we could do a whole live stream about her experience. Her name is Candy Parks. Hello, Candy.
Hey, Leedy, how are you?
I'm great. So let me do this introduction. Again, I could totally go off script here because you and I had so much fun together working back at Disney Cruise Line. But Candy is our resident MagicMakers Group research expert. She's done consumer research in so many Disney businesses. Again, it would take a whole nother webinar just for that. But Candy, I just want to say one of the things that I really appreciated about working with you is your level of understanding that you have to mix the data with the walking in the consumer shoes. And because we always had so much great data, but you also made a point to make sure that you actually experience the stuff with the guests. And when we're doing empathy sessions in the innovation process, we make sure that all those people that are creating whatever the end product or the end the end marketing campaign, we make sure that they walk a little bit in those guest shoes, so they always have that as inspiration to create ideas. So I can't wait to hear your stories. I know you have some, I know that we don't have enough time for all the stories that you possibly have, but I do want to hear a couple of them, right? We want to hear a couple of them, I'm sure.
All right. Well, yes, you know I have stories, no shortage. So obviously, as you know, at Disney, we place huge importance on listening to and learning directly from our guests or our consumers, which, by the way, starts with listening to and learning from your cast or your employees.
Definitely.
And all of that is done in the name of creating and executing exceptional experience and exceptional service. So, part of my role as a researcher is to make sure I'm getting to the right people in the right situation at the right time, so that it's going to be a real, authentic learning. And in the course of doing that, yes, I've done research in some unusual and untraditional places, such as monorails, buses, watercraft, the train, the trams, in a mud room at a spa.
And don't forget the Mickey pool.
Oh, yes. In or around not only the Mickey pool, but hot tubs.
Yep.
Did I say public restroom? Yeah, that was a fun one. Ooh, in somebody's home, in their bedroom, their bathroom, and their closet. It was a packing study.
Wow.
And a favorite one, riding in a van with 14 travel agents from Orlando to Port Canaveral. That's a ride I'll never forget, and incredibly insightful. Learned a lot from those folks. And probably, the one I always, the story I tell, and I pray there's no YouTube, is once and only once I donned a black leather jacket and I lip synced to Justin Bieber's Baby.
All right. There has to be YouTube documentation of that somehow.
Please, God, no. I even did the ludicrous rap section.
Wow, but, impressive.
I did it because I needed to be accepted by the teens to get into their posse, so I could do
in the teen club on the Disney cruise ship.
That's right. So, I'm sure there are folks that are watching and listening just going, seriously, scoffing.
Especially the academics. They're probably like, that's not on any goodness. In our textbooks.
It's like, yeah, I didn't learn that in college. And it's like, you know what? I stand behind it. I stand behind every darn thing I did, because the learning, it was real. It was authentic. Nothing was contrived. And the learnings were hugely actionable and impactful.
Yeah, and valuable. And I just remember from my experience working with you at Disney Cruise Line, the leadership team at Disney Cruise Line did not make a move or a change fundamentally without having your seal of approval. And I mean, really, research is really important when it comes to identifying what your consumer needs are. So great stories. And I know, again, I'm looking at the chat, and I know there's got to be some great questions out there, Rob. So I'll turn it over to you for some questions for Candy.
Yeah, Lee. So yeah, a couple things, Candy. I was like, I'm going to second what Lee just said about using consumer research to make decisions, because it is a super powerful way that a lot of people didn't know that that consumer insights drove so much of the decision making, because it was all about, it is just like testing and research. It is some of the cheapest insurance that you can buy to really understand what your customers and your employees felt and about decisions that were being made, because it's just as important to understand what your employees are saying as well. And hey, Candy, one of the ones, when I think about that, when I think about research, do you have, what are your top guiding principles for research? How do you think about that?
Oh, excellent question. Well, you were just talking about employee research, and I would tell you my number one guiding principle is you protect anonymity at all costs. So if you want your employees to be honest and open, you have to make sure nobody gets thrown under the bus in terms of the way, even starting back from the way they're invited and how, you got to set your whole system and your process up to protect the individuals. And when you get into reporting, you're not going to use specific quotes or data points that can allow somebody to go back and say, Rob said that.
Right.
So that would be my number one principle. The other is relevance. So don't ask questions that you're not going to take action on, because you're setting an expectation. So if you ask somebody, how do you feel about your pay and benefits, and you're not going to do anything about it, don't ask the question. You can ask, do I feel like my pay or benefits are comparable to others in the area, other companies in my industry. Anyway, and the third thing would be follow up. Make sure they know that you heard them, and then tell them what you're going to do about it. When it comes to consumer research, relevance is still the same. Actionability is still the same. Don't do something unless you're going to take action on it, or it's going to guide a decision. One that I find a lot of researchers overlook is it's got to be relatable. So for example, at MagicMakers, we're working with a group in Australia right now, and we are doing the qualitative interviews before developing the quant survey, because we need to learn how they talk. Even though they speak English, they have, it's a different lexicon. And so we want to make sure when we're crafting a survey or any other activity that we're speaking in a relatable way, and it's not like, oh, those silly people.
One size does not fit all, right?
Yeah. So it's got to be relatable to whoever it is you're dealing with, and also the industry. It's got to be industry appropriate. So for consumer research, it's got to be relevant, it's got to be relatable, and it needs to be actionable.
Yeah,
awesome.
Great, Candy. Hey, one quick last one as a follow-up. Tanya's got a great question here. What is one of your most memorable experiences that you launched at DCL based on customer research?
Oh, free sodas.
Free sodas. Thank you, Candy.
I was totally going to go there. It was like, that was like my last project we worked on when I was at Disney Cruise Line. And we came to you and said, what is the number one complaint of Disney Cruise Line guests? And it was free soda. It was the cost of soda.
It was not having free soda. And you
and
made
then
it that
you
way.
and Jim just looked at me and go, that ain't happening. And it was like, so we went through this process for a while, right? And it wasn't just the cost. And in fact, it wasn't much about the cost. It was the process. You had to sign 5 flipping lines on a receipt every time a kid wanted a Coke. And you're a family of 7.
That's a tough gig right there.
And no other cruise line, it was a huge revenue stream. No other cruise line was even touching that with a 10-foot pole. And Disney going, well, heck, we are the family line. If anybody's going to do it, it's us. And we're going to figure out how to make the finance work. So thank you, Rob, for making the finance work.
No, that's great. Yeah, I was in finance and responsible for shipboard revenue at the time. And I remember doing the math and was like, this is going to be interesting. But for us, it was the right thing to do for the guest. It attacked the number one issue that was the number one complaint at the time. And there was literally no one else in the cruise industry that could do what was done.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of money for Disney Cruise Line. It was a whole lot of money for others. The barrier for entry for that one concept was insurmountable for anybody else. That's a great question. Back to you, Lee.
Awesome. Well, Candy, I know you could keep going on, and I would love to hear every one of your stories because I know how awesome they are. I appreciate the fact that you are on the MagicMakers group. I can't wait to work together. Our businesses in creativity, innovation, and consumer research are tied together because there's a whole step in the design thinking process around empathy and around really getting inspired by the data that you have. So I can't wait till that first project that we work on. But until then, I will send you off, and we will see you next time. Thank you for being here.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay. And now we are going to go to our next expert here. Our next expert knows a thing or two about using research to create compelling products in the world of experiential retail. MagicMakers Group expert Dara Trujillo is a master merchandiser and concept developer who was instrumental in bringing things like the Bippity Boppity Boutique, the Pirates League, Duffy the Disney Bear, all kinds of iterations of the ear hat, and I hope to hear the ear hat story today, Dara. Dara, welcome. We're really excited to have you here. A really exciting topic, and so hopefully you've got some stories for us. I see you've got a lot of merchandise behind you. I know the rest of your office is filled with Disney merchandise, probably. So So welcome.
It is, my friend. It is. And yes, I have stories. I mean, there's so many amazing stories that I could tell. First of all, I had the best job in the world, and that was to create tangible memories that people could take home. And whether it was the drumsticks from Rock and Roller Coaster, or my favorite, a little girl being turned around for the very first time inside of the Bippity Boppity Boutique, and seeing herself all made up as a princess, the way that she and her family have always seen her. My memories are incredible, and it's all about the great customer service. But I think, so to kind of answer your question about my story with the ear hat, there's a couple of things to talk about with customer service. Specifically, it comes as it relates to merchandise. And we can all hear the phrase customer service, and we go to some of our favorite grocery stores and we hear the word my pleasure. But really, how does customer service set you apart in a retail world where merchandise may or may not be your top priority? With us, we fought and we battled against heads and beds, food and beverage, photo imaging. I mean, we battled against everything. And sometimes when that wallet got really thin, we were the last purchase. So what we had to do is we kind of had to, first we had to look and observe what our customers and what our guests were doing and what they were buying. We had to notice if they were gravitating towards things that were unique and different to us. We had to create engagement. And then ultimately, sometimes we had to pivot. So how we pivoted with the ear hat specifically is we noticed it was the #1 selling tangible memory for all of our guests when they came in is the black iconic ear hat.
Yep.
So something happened. We had a celebration. We had the happiest celebration on earth, which was to celebrate the golden anniversary of Disneyland. And someone had this really creative idea about taking that black iconic Holy Grail ear hat.
Definitely Holy Grail.
And just turning it gold. Let's just make it gold. Why not?
Right.
Could have used Candy's research to find out if our customers really wanted us to touch it, but we did. We were glad that we pivoted and we took that leap of faith because it led us into incredible retail offerings, tangible memories for our customers. The golden ear hat led into create your own. So make your own, pull off your different ears, create your different base, be unique, self-expression. The mini ones, which I know you love.
I love those mini ones. The ones with the chihuahuas. I love those.
Chihuahua on top of Epcot Ball, wherever you
super cute.
Get it. Absolutely. And then, of course, the glow with the show ears. So being able to pivot and realize what our customers were purchasing and what they wanted was a great way for us to create customer engagement. We didn't want to be transactional. We needed to be purposeful and relatable. And then lastly is our pin trading. So we love pins. We knew that our customers were buying them as a souvenir, that whole tangible memory component. But how could we create customer service within the pin world? So trading was huge within the Olympics. We brought it to the Walt Disney Company, to Disney parks. And in order for us to go one step farther, and how do you get these customers, these guests who are walking in who don't know each other, that are beelining it to the castle or Mission Space or Space Mountain, how do you get them to stop and engage with you? So I worked really hard with our wonderful friend Lee Cockrell to allow us to take the cast uniform and put a lanyard on with pins. So that now you had that engagement before you got to that attraction and you were trading and looking. And through that, we were able to do research. Which pins were taken? What were the different types of stories that they were gravitating towards? Who were their favorite? And then we were able to create limited editions, events, you name it. So out of one little observation and customer engagement, we created incredible tangible memories.
So interesting, and I still have a lot of those pins. I'm saving them to send my my grandson through college someday. So, well, Dara, I know this is a totally popular topic, and you know, anybody who is a Disney fan loves all of that merchandise that you just mentioned and more. And Bippity Boppity Boutique, come on, that's the most adorable thing. Seeing all of those princesses walk around the park. Rob, I'm going to turn it to you. Any questions from the chat for Dara?
Yeah, so I'm gonna do a follow-up question that I was thinking about as I was listening to you talk, Dara. I was like, because you're talking about the whole retail experience, right? Turning transactions into interactions, and this whole notion of retailtainment, which was just a different view that that you and your teams put it together. There's a lot of different disciplines in retail, right? And there's a bunch of folks that are they're in a part of MagicMakers group that do retail store design, operations, product development. Can you talk a little bit about how integrating those disciplines kind of get you to kind of blowing up and really taking a different view of the retail experience?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you asked that question, because I actually get asked that a lot. I've gone around and I've done a lot of speaking and public engagements, and someone says to me, how do you reach across the aisle? How do you create that synergies? Everybody is so used to working within their silo. Well, it's very easy in the retail world. You have no choice but to work with operations, store design, product development. But it does take, at times, a village to create what it is that you're trying to work towards the betterment of the consumer. So within MagicMakers, for example, we have our wonderful Robert Kelly, who is so diehard into operations and knows everything from the P1 fixturing to how you move and flow your customers in and out, and what the dollar per square foot needs to be, which is different regardless of where you go in the country, or even within your city, or even within your own company. We have our wonderful Tony Mancini. If it wasn't for the incredible store design that draws that customer, that consumer in to create that point of differentiation, then you really wouldn't have anything for someone to talk about. Product development, we have Lori B.J. Miller, anything from private label to working on branded goods so that you can fill all those P1 fixtures and you can offer your consumer something that's completely different. In that retail world, you kind of have to have all tentacles to make something extremely successful. But again, it kind of starts back with, who is my consumer? What are they buying? Am I offering them something unique and something different? And then when I have all that figured out, what is my engagement? How can I be relational?
Awesome. Rob, any more questions?
No, sir. Back to you.
Excellent. All right, Dara. I could probably go on forever to chat with you as well. But I'm going to move on to our next expert. This expert is actually one of the co-founders of the MagicMakers group. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on here. Just like the other co-founder, Rob, Cal came to Disney to join the opening of Disney Cruise Line. A few years later, he was asked to run the Disney Reservation Center, which is the Disney's call center. It takes millions of calls every year. And Cal, I can't wait to hear all about this because, I do have a family member that works at the Disney Reservation Center, my brother Jay, and he is super busy because he's got a million plates to spin and so much going on and so many moving pieces and reactions and actions and all kinds of stuff. So I can't wait to hear all about it. I'm sure you have some great stories for us.
Yeah, and it's great to be with you and everyone out there in our audience, Lee. And before I get started, huge shout out to Jay. He is an exceptional leader. And I will say this, we knew at least when I was there, that you called a lot, Lee.
Dude, I like the whole music.
You have a big family. You have a lot of friends that came in from out of town. So I know that you booked a lot of rooms and a lot of dinners and
I did indeed.
And a lot of rounds of golf. And had you booked more rounds of golf, you'd probably
I'd definitely be a better golfer now. And you haven't even golfed with me yet. You know that.
Yeah, I'm afraid to get hit. So we knew that you called a lot, but I will say this, now multiply the number of times you called by 1 million, and you just see how many times a year the Disney Reservation Center agents got a chance to create magic for a guest. And when you talk about delivering great customer service, we know how important that is for a successful business, but it's also pretty darn hard. Because if it was easy, you wouldn't hear so many complaints about it, which is why MagicMakers works with companies to get it right. And getting it right is especially hard when you can't see the customer on the other end of the line. And that's why call centers really do need to consider anything to open up the conversation and create a bond with the caller. David talked about driveway to driveway, and that's exactly what the goal of a call center really is engaging with guests before they arrive and before they consume your product. I remember back in, I think it was 2009, I think I got the year right, but I might be off by a year or two, when we launched What Will You Celebrate? That campaign was amazing. And our agents asked that very question at the beginning of every single call. And we did that for a couple of reasons. One, we entered that information into a database. And two, that information was shared everywhere, so cast members could recognize those celebrations. And I will say guests absolutely loved it. So when that campaign was over and we could return to delivering our usual magic, many guests and many of you travel agents out there, because I know you're on today, noticed that we were still asking that question. So for years, I was asked why. Well, here's why. We noticed a much higher level of engagement with both our guests and our call center agents. It was simply a happier call. So I decided to keep that question in, and it opened up that conversation to a world of possibilities where we could really create common ground and start a real relationship with that guest. And let's face it, Lee, who wouldn't want to celebrate losing their first tooth or acing the ACT by going to Disney?
Or your best golf game, right?
Or your best golf game, breaking 100, breaking 90, breaking whatever it is.
Excellent. All right, so I'm just going to go to Rob. I'm sure we're just about over time here, but so I want to make sure we get some 1 or 2 more questions in for Cal. What kind of questions do you have for us?
Yeah, it's great, Cal. I'm going to sneak in my finance manager question. I'm going to put my finance manager hat and ask you the common call center question, AHT, average handle time. As I was listening to you tell your story about engagement and creating deeper engagement in a call or a contact center, that just makes me sound like, wow, that's going to cost more. So you can talk a little bit about how you thought about and how you kind of the philosophy you talked about with your leaders on that subject.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a common question that we get a lot. And it really is about price value. What we tell our contact center clients is that it's not about the amount of time an agent spends with the caller, but rather the quality of time that they spend. And the point of my story earlier is that every interaction matters. And that's because it leads to one of only 2 outcomes. That's it. It either strengthens your brand or it weakens it. So anything you can do to elevate the quality of that interaction helps create an emotional connection to your brand that remains long after the call is ended.
Nice.
Great,
Rob,
thanks,
any more
Cal.
questions?
Back to you, Lee.
Excellent. All right, Cal, we really appreciate you talking about the call centers, but I just want to turn it over to you to kind of wrap us up here. We're definitely at time, and I appreciate we've got a lot of great viewers out there and a lot of great stuff in the chat. So if you want to bring us home, go for it.
Yeah, I can't believe that hour is over. It really flew by. And I want to thank my fellow Magic Makers for sharing their stories from their past Disney careers and offering their insights on how great customer service elevates the customer experience. I also want to thank you, our audience, for joining us today. I want to let you know that our experts are available to leverage their Disney-inspired expertise to help you solve your challenges. My partner, Rob Malden, can assess your souvenir photography experience and assess your strategy and transformation. Barry Jacobson and Norm Noble can assess your current hotel operations and food and beverage guest experience and provide ways to elevate it to magical levels. George McNeely can work with you as a trusted advisor to ensure that your communication and alliance strategy not only supports, but advances your brand in the marketplace. And for those of you in the sports and venues world, David Saperstein can help you elevate your driveway to driveway fan experience. Today, you heard from our insights expert, Candy Parks, who can help you with actionable, qualitative, and quantitative research to drive your brand, your customer experience, and employee engagement. In the retail business, Dara Trujillo can elevate your product offerings and help identify ways to pivot your retail shopping experience to new levels. Of course, I can help you assess your contact center experience and share recommendations on how to make that more magical. But I'd be remiss if I didn't recommend our resident innovation catalyst and creativity dude, you, Lee Kitchen.
Thank you.
Who can help you get outside of your comfort zone. And you need to do that to look at your business challenges from a completely different angle and ensure customer-centric solutions. Now, if this is the help you need, contact us today at magicmakersgroup.com for a free consult. If you need help with other challenges, our 14 different studios of expertise with 20 MMG experts represent a tapestry of talent with over 350 years of Disney experience. I have absolutely no doubt we have the expert that's right for you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Cal, thank you so much for setting this up. And we really appreciate that. That was a great close. And I'm going to go ahead and let you go. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much, man.
See you soon.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us at our first ever Magic Makers Group live stream. We are so thankful and grateful that you joined us. We appreciate all your comments and questions in the chat. We hope to be doing this a little bit more often, so look for some messages from us for hopefully once a month. We will have our fellow Magic Makers to come out and talk to you about how we connect the your brand promise with operational excellence. Until then, my name is Lee Kitchen, Resident Innovation Catalyst. Thank you so much for joining us at the Magic Makers Group live stream. We will see you next time.